Hey, g'day guys, it's Calvin from the Cartoon Company. We're doing a 2003 Hilux and I've done separate videos on a lot of the install, but I thought I might put the wiring in its own series because it's quite involved. It's not really about the exact numbers, exact pinouts, exact wiring, colours of this vehicle. It's more about the process, because this process can be applied to every single vehicle that is wired when you change a 1UZ within reason. This one happened to be a V6 to start with, and it was an auto. It's getting changed to a manual. And very few of the jobs that I do is an exact copy. They are all a little bit different. And this one is no different. The last one I did was a V6. It was a manual to manual. It got a 3UZ. This one's getting a non-VVTi, so 20, Gen 2, 20 series. The last one got a Link ECU, a Thunder. This one's getting a standard computer. A quick look of the engine in the hole. Well, that's what it's looking like. I've already made up a loom across the front of the engine for the alternator. So the alternator loom, you can just see the little red bit comes along the bottom of here, and it runs up to the standard fuse box. And I've already done the main power wire to the starter motor. So those two are already done. As part of this one, I put in the main start trigger. It's there. So that's ready to go, and we'll put the same plug and plug it into the factory box and run the alternator into the factory box, and we have a 100 amp alternator fuse. So that is important as well. That's enough for the job. With regard to the wiring we've got, I actually received the V6 loop. This vehicle was all stripped apart when we received it, and so it's a repair of a conversion. We've pretty much started again. But there is the V6 loop, and these are quite interesting. Through this grommet, runs down to the engine, and then the gearbox loom comes around the front of the engine, drops down, runs along the side of the engine and right down the gearbox, and it's quite long. I have already made a gearbox loom. It comes up to the back, up the firewall. There's 12 pins in that loom, and I've got a diagram of that already recorded. So I just have to remember to run those wires in this loom, and we'll be fine with that. The next thing I've got is the Lexus loom. I had an alternator loom that came with it. I won't be using any of that, so that's not getting used at all. And I have a standard Gen 2 UCF20 loom here. It is unmolested. As normal, we'll see if we got broken plugs. We've got broken plugs, so that's pretty normal. There was no airflow meter, but there was an ECU. So we have the standard UCF20 computer. This one is 50241. So we've got that computer. I've got some pins that will fit the plugs. I've got the 28 pin plug for the end, brand new, because it wasn't supplied. And I've got some of my hieroglyphics from the last job. These will be similar, they won't be exact. What I don't have in there, I'm going to make up. And by make up, what I do is I compare the information I've got, I grab my multimeter and I actually run through the loom and check everything. Even if I've got all the information, I'm still going to grab my multimeter and continuity test every pin. And the reason I do that is Toyota are fantastic, and they might change 3 pins in the loom. And when you get to the other end and you've got a problem, then it can cause quite a big problem. So it's quite a simple job, doesn't take too long. I'm not going to show every single detail of that, but you'll get a bit of a brief. So that's what I'm going to get into now, and that's the first part of the process. The UCF20 loom That one, because I do so many, it takes me a few moments just to run through, check colours, confirm it is the right loom, because there are two options that I see a lot of. That's in the Celsior. The LS400 has a slightly different loom again, and it's really easy to tell the differences on them when you've done a few. So going off my diagrams, it tells me that pin 1 of this 26 pin plug is power for injectors, and it is. It's power for injectors, which it is, and power for the coils. Which it is. Real simple. Yep, that's a positive. Move on to the next one. 4x4 light, pin 2, and I know the 4x4 light is down the back of the four-wheel drive loom. Pin 2, it's black. It's red black, it is, and it continuity tests fine. That's real simple. The other pin is white, black, being an earth. Confirm that. TS and diagnostics is for the next one, which it is. With the diagnostic plug, on the last one, because I fitted an aftermarket computer, I didn't need the engine diagnostic plug at all. But it still had some diagnostics for the rest of the vehicle. It has the ABS in there and the airbag, I believe. AB, airbag. So there are some stuff in there that is quite important. This one's getting a standard computer, which has a standard diagnostic plug on the engine. So what I'll be doing there is I'll be swapping the pins from the standard diagnostic plug into the 1UZ diagnostic plug. So the relevant pins will then end up in there. That way I can use the scan tool to plug into the same diagnostics of the truck without a problem. If I'm doing an aftermarket computer, I'll still fit that diagnostic plug. I just cut it off and I move it inside the cabin and I put it in the kick panel. So again, you can still get your diagnostics out of it. That way the functionality of the vehicle is retained. This one should be OBD2 from the engine.
Yeah, it is.
You sure?
You know.
Did you see the plug?
Yeah. Over there.
When you got the dash out, should be right there. So you OBD2 as well.
Yeah.
The OBD2 function of this vehicle, the computer was OBD2, the engine ECU was OBD2. And if I do an aftermarket, I was actually able to communicate, put the OBD2 functions from the aftermarket, the link ECU, through the factory OBD2 plug. So that retained that functionality. This computer's not OBD2, so we'll be using I'll modify the engine diagnostic plug so I can connect the scan tool to that, which it isn't factory. I will then also wire this vehicle's OBD1 diagnostics to the engine ECU, the engine diagnostic plug as well. So we've got that. I will wire in another diagnostic plug with my adapter so I can plug in to the main diagnostics that was on this vehicle under the dash. We don't get supplied a lot of those fittings, so I just put an adapter and it'll all work just fine. Okay, I've got a blue-red for reverse. I've still got a blue-red for reverse 12 volt, well it's 12 volt, but of course this was an auto, so it's got to go down to the shift plug. Sorry, it's not blue-red, it's red-blue.
Well, that's the same bloody thing, isn't it?
No, it isn't. It's not the same. I'm afraid when it comes to wiring, blue-red and red-blue is not the same.
Well, it is the same. One's blue and red and one's red and blue. It's exactly the same.
However, the main body is the first colour
Well, you didn't stipulate that, did you?
That's how it's stipulated.
Right, you didn't
Just-
stipulate that.
Pretty sure I did by saying it's red blue.
Yeah.
Though I said it was blue red, which is confusing, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. See?
Yeah, so I did make a mistake there. It still goes down to that diagnostic plug, to that shift selector plug. So that power supply is still in the same place. Thank you, Toyota. That's nice. That's nice of them.
Good bastards.
So it's actually pin, oh, I can't see it. Oh, it's going to be 1, 2, 3. Pin 3.
Clean as, bro.
So after I was rudely interrupted, the power supply for the manual, which went to the reverse lights, is the power supply for the shift selector on the auto. And so that's why my diagrams will be a little bit different. We've got some front diff wires coming up next. I wasn't going to run through every single one of these wires, but it does appear I'm heading that way. Where's the front diff?
Because you like the sound of your own voice, really.
Yeah, I know. Do you know where the front diff wiring is?
Yeah.
Yeah, on the front diff.
Yeah.
Is it a 4-pin going to the front diff?
I'm going to have a look.
Yeah, that'd be great, actually. It's got to come down this gearbox loom.
Shit, see? Get a mess. Hey, pup. Diff. Do you want it off at the diff?
That runs up the...
Runs up with those air hoses, so.
Correct, runs up with the ADD air hoses. And I was expecting it to be a 4-pin, but I don't seem to have a 4-pin. And I've changed colours too.
That's 2-pin.
Oh no, I've got it, it's okay.
Red, black, and green.
Yep, green, black, I was in the wrong hole. There's my problem.
You get slapped for that.
We try to avoid the wrong hole.
I'm just going to try to avoid it.
Green, black, it's that one.
Some don't.
So that's my front diff right there. So I'll need that. So that is correct. Diff. So that wire is the controls for the front diff. So down on the front diff we've got a plug here. It runs up and there's another plug
It's just sitting on the top of the chassis rail there somewhere.
here. Ouch, that's my head. So that wire will need to be retained. You did a lovely job of those inner guards.
Look good, eh? I like the red trim on them too.
Red
I think
trim.
next time I might actually pinstripe them.
Red trim.
You see what
So that is still diff. So that is green black. When I'm in the right hole, we're good. Empty. Oh, that is correct. I'm liking Toyota so far because the pins have actually been the same. They've done really well. Reverse is in the same spot. It's very, very helpful. That's looking pretty good to me. Even plus B's in the same place. Airflow meter supply, it's all good. I found a difference.
One's red black and one's black red.
No, I've got pin 21. Pin 21 on the other one was empty. On the auto one it's got something in it. So I've got to find it.
Maybe it has to do with the auto.
And if I was... You think it might be something to do with the auto?
Well, no, I didn't say that. I said maybe it has something to do with the auto.
You know, so it's got to be going down to the auto, the shift selector plug, you reckon? It is. AC trigger. Hopefully it's this one. Yep. You've got to remember to put that AC back in. speedo. I'm writing every colour backwards now.
Well, actual backwards or?
Right, I'm writing white black as black white. I'm struggling. That was pin 6, shift selector. That's got to be like ST. Oh, that's an earth for start inhibit. I went through the last little white plug, and that had all the auto stuff in it. Went down to the shift selector. I'm going to need to remember to bypass the start inhibit circuit, which is pretty straightforward. It is those two there. The earth signal that goes down to the shift selector, and the blue black that goes to the start circuit. What it's left me is there is in the main 26 pin plug there was a black red wire going down to the start, or to the shift selector switch, pin 5. That looks like it's the same as a 3UZ one, so I will double check what that pin actually is and see if I have to use it. And I've got a pink blue wire over here in this plug, which does not go down to the shift selector switch, so it's got to be somewhere else in this loom, so I'm going to find it. So that last pink blue wire goes to the neutral switch, which is on that transfer case. I know that isn't present on the transfer case that's fitted to this vehicle now. So that plug there is going to be pretty much obsolete, except I will join those two together. So it will start. That's nice and simple. I'll just double check on that blue red wire. These ones are all for the transfer case, so they are needed. The other thing I'm going to do is measure the length of this loom from the grommet to the plugs, and they should be pretty similar to these. Outside of grommet to the back of these plugs, I've written down as 350. Yeah, it's just a little bit more actually, it's like 370. Just another little hint, when you're working on these plugs, a lot of them have a number on them. And this one I can't see any numbers. So the one I choose to use as an example, I can't actually see it. So let's go to one that does. This is one of the ECU plugs. And just down the bottom here, there is actually a number. And being white, I can't see it. Here it is, 11421. That's the ECU plug. Just down in here, 117. I think it's an 87, maybe a 97. It's written on the bottom. And then you can order plugs. They are, I've got the numbers, I can't remember off the top of my head. So if you're looking for the connector numbers, of course, we've the connector number along there. And all housings are 90980. So 90980, that 5-digit number, it's like on the injector plugs, it's on most plugs I've got it, or a lot of them. Here's an example of one that I've just picked up. This one happens to be on the UZ loom. It's the other side, so that's the side there that plugs in the main start trigger wire. So that's for the knock sensor and the starter wire. Anyway, I have removed this. That is coming off For some things, a bit of lube is necessary. Woohoo! Look at that. Whoop, whoop, woo! I've had enough of looking at this loom. While I'm on connectors, we'll just do a little bit of a look at connectors. This is a Nippon Denso injector plug. Slightly different in the design and has different terminals to the Toyota one. So there is a Toyota injector plug. That is 11153. So it is the, of course, 90980 or 11153. Different terminals between these two. Some of the early looms, pardon me. Some of the early looms have this one. So I've got a crown loom. Oh, that's got a different design again. So that has the same terminals, but it has this shape. And this one here is a genuine one. You can see I can't really squeeze it too much. This is a genuine one. It's nice and firm, proper, can't squeeze it too much. And this is a Chinese copy. The whole thing about it is crap. There's no seal in it. That's someone else's loom that someone else has made. So be aware of cheap copies. They are crap. They do not last. I endeavour where I can to use the real deal. And the other pickup, the other one I got today is the 6-pin. On the front of a Celsius loom. So I'm pretty excited about this. There it is there. On the crank loom, that one there. So the 6-pin connection between the main engine loom and the front loom. I have the 4-pin already, so I'm really happy about that. The next plan I have, which I haven't completely formulated in my little head yet, and I'm working with wires that are a pretty good order. I may strip this loom back partway down through here to pull some of these wires out. So for the likes of your transfer case engagement, they're in good order. Bring them out and drop them in the back of the UZ loom. At this point, I'm going to cancel this loom out, put that one aside, and swap onto the UZ loom. A bit of a briefing on the plan. We'll soften this. We've got some measurements for the grommet and up through there, which we can work on. We're going to remove the transmission loom, and I'm going to pull them right out. I'm not going to recycle at this point because I am quite keen on feeding those other wires through the right colours. So they'll come down and they'll do the gearbox as the right colours. I'm very, very keen to move this stuff here. So I'm kind of thinking of dropping the oxygen sensor down through here instead of bringing it right along here, down and around. I'm quite keen to bring the airflow meter wiring just across here, because the airflow meter is now sitting imaginary here and the igniters are sitting about here. So I'm quite keen to bring that stuff down through here, pop it out and bring it round. I think that would make it a bit neater and tidier. And we've got hot exhaust still on the side. I just think that would be a better design. As per normal, coil plug needs replacing, idle speed, water temp, injector plugs. This was a non-traction control engine, which is a little bit interesting. So we don't have to take the sub TPS out. But in fact, it is the same ECU as a traction control engine. It's the loom that's different. And we might have a bit of a look at that in that loom because that's something a little bit different. We've got an oil pressure switch to put in down through the center here. I think I'm not going to put the fan wiring in, though, because it's a standard package. I might run a pair of wires, but we don't use them, and we'll run the fan switch to the front fuse box, or I could run them through here, and then down to the fuse box. And I've got those 2 diff wires. The front diff has got that sensor on, which needs to have wires in. So I've kind of got a bit of a plan in my head. I'm going to get into this, do updates as I go through, because I've done so many of these and exposés on them, and I've got that full wiring video on a manual. But I'll pop back in and do a few updates as we're going through it. Pretty quickly, this side all comes apart. Airflow meter and igniters are dropped off. Oxygen sensors dropped off. And we split all this side off. Because I'm replacing all the plugs on this one, and I'm not on such a restricted budget, the customer has actually said he just wants the truck going, sort it, do it how I would like it done, and fix the stuff up that it was to begin with. And he knows it was an issue, this particular vehicle, when it came in. So I'm going to pop a little bit of braid on each of these. So we'll braid up those. The bigger stuff will still have the split sleeve, the conduit on it. But the peripherals, where I can, I will braid. And I think I'll use the cloth tape on this one too. Just see how we can make it look. All this stuff, that plasticky stuff that was originally on it, that all comes off. Fairly straightforward job. Sometimes life just doesn't go to plan on the conversion. We've got a phone call from our supplier that the power steer hose, which has it got power steer written on it? Yeah, it's only got 300 PSI written on it anyway. He missed that, didn't he? That he made up some power steer hoses for us that are only rated at 300 working pressure with a burst pressure of about 1200. It's really not enough. Luckily, we designed them in a way that they're really easy to take on and off. There you go, nice and simple. Screw threads down. So Mike only took a few minutes, he had them off, and our supplier will sort that out for us. Our throttle cable has returned, and I fitted that up. So I've shortened it right up. It has a nice flowing loop. Comes over, and I aim to get it in the middle of the adjustment, but we don't always have, not always successful. And it should be quite loose. You don't want any pressure at idle on that plate. Anyone who has idling problems and tighten up their throttle cable, that's just a dork move. You should always have it nice and loose, but still get full throttle. So I've popped it in here. You can see the pedal's got a little bit of free play. That's quite nice. We go out here. And we've got full throttle. that's another little piece off the puzzle. Often when you're watching some of these online conversions, you don't see all those little bits and pieces. And whilst this is going to be quite a long video, I'm trying to make it as complete as I can. So for you guys that have done a lot of conversions, sorry that some of that stuff is pretty obvious. There's also a lot of guys out there that don't really see all those little bits and pieces, and often it leads to people not understanding why it takes the length of time to do a conversion and to really do proper detail, make it look really good. Taking the time to do it at the time of conversion and not saying, I'll fix that later, makes for a much better job. And that's been my attitude the whole time. I really avoid that, we'll do it later. Today Mike's going to be completing the drive shaft hoops. He's kind of got a plan happening. He's kind of roughed out a bit of an idea here. So he's got it bracketed up. A bit more tidying to do yet. The hoop has to be dropped down, so it'll be sitting below itself. I'm going through at the moment, putting a little bit of braid on this one, attempting to make it look as neat as we can. The factory plastic covering always falls to pieces, just absolutely, it's horrible stuff. And braid does take a bit longer to do than some tape. So it isn't my normal job. But the result is going to be what we want. And I'm going through placing plugs. I'm also going to start a bit of a file register. Whilst I know which plugs are which, and that's, as I talk about that, that is not a coil plug. I know which plug is which and where they go. I'm actually taking photos of each plug with their connectors, which was going to be part of my wiring instructions. And I'm putting in a bit of information with regard to what pins go where. And it just helps maybe if you've destroyed a plug. Even if the connector looks good, often when you go to touch it, they are absolutely stuffed. So a bit of destructive removal is required. And I'm not taking much force, and this is just falling to pieces. And in some cases, we go to plan B, which is cut the terminal off. Strip and a recrimp. I'm doing wiring and I'm taking off a throttle body. Go figure. Another day of traffic. Whew. Stressing me out. Why did I decide to do it this way?
What are you doing it that way for?
Yeah, I know. I thought it would look better actually. To tell you the truth, I still think it's going to look better. We can get rid of those brackets off the side of the engine. But I just want to know whether the igniters will actually reach still. And in fact, I don't think I'm even going to cut those. I think I'm going to leave them the same length. And I don't think the airflow meter plug is going to fit onto the igniter. I think I'll use the igniter plugs onto the igniter. Someone cut the airflow meter plug off.
Why did they do that?
It was the wrong length, so I've shortened it. So now I'm going to try and put braid over all these wires. Yeah. I reckon I can do it. As long as the cross tube's in there, Cert Man's happy. Okay, don't care. It doesn't even need to be welded. Can I slap you?
If you want, I'm holding a big piece of pipe. So let's go.
So, as long as it's in there and welder's the best, welder's only to make it easy to assemble and disassemble. I just don't want it, so if someone takes that out, that all the cross tubes fall out. Because they go, who did this job? You look like a dick.
Well, you look like a dick.
Anyway, yeah, well, okay. But so you got it?
Yeah.
Slam them in.
So red poo or grey poo?
Electronic poo with that welder thing over there.
Oh yeah, is your Tasmacana function?
Yeah, I think so. I'm not sure that drive shaft hoop is quite ideal.
It's a drive shaft hoop and it's around the drive shaft.
So it doesn't fully encapsulate the drive shaft, and it's
It kind of does if you hold it there.
wicked. I see you've attacked the chassis with your sanding disc ready for welding.
Yeah.
Aren't you glad you're not an Australian?
Yeah.
Because you're not allowed to weld to the chassis if you're an Australian.
That's their problem.
But we are. So you give it a good buff up there. So the back one, we want the same principle. We're using the finger measurements again. That looks actually pretty good. I don't think that's going to touch. Plenty of bolts.
There's plenty of bolts.
So drive shaft hoop on the front drive shaft is done. We just have to finish off the welding of the brackets. Mike's going to take a couple of edges off a little bit there. I can't now. It's in place.
No, that's how they are.
That's how it is.
It looks sexy though.
It looks good, and we'll blacken up that chassis each side of that a bit more. You see I've done the exhaust shields. I put some black on. And that bloody 44-gallon drum of an exhaust of a muffler that fell out twice. I'm surprised we left it in there that long.
I was
Not
gonna
like
say,
us,
why didn't
eh?
we take it out ages ago?
Oh, we never got around to it.
No.
No.
Seems to like open up quite a cabin.
Yeah, but just remember we do have to put an exhaust in there, so you don't want to take it all up with your drive shaft hoop. So basic for the back drive shaft hoop, again, we're aiming for the same sort of thing, around about here. The proper measurement used to be 150, and I think they've stretched it to 250. I don't really care about that so much. Let's go with practical common sense about there. So if that breaks, or anywhere in that cartridge joint breaks, we're going to capture it. It's going to fall, considering it's actually most likely to break at the back on the slip joint, and we don't have to worry about the back there. Don't make the rules. So we need a bracket, but I run a pipe from this here to up into there, back at the back, and then I build a hoop around here, put some brackets down off that and hang that off the remount, off that bracket going through.
So you use the same hoop or build one?
The last one I built one. So I've got that big pipe. So I got that. I slice off 50mm wide. So our ruling is 5mm thick. This is about 6, 5 by 50. Otherwise, if you want to use a drive shaft hoop, I've got them as well.
I know.
So you can use one of those drive shaft, whatever you think. So this one will need to be extended, of course, because it'll need a piece in between. However you want to do to make it work, but you could just about do actually. I kind of envisaged, and what I come up onto that piece of the other ones that I've done have been, because the slip joint's been at the front, I've had a second one back here because I've had a slip joint. So I've had a much longer distance, and it wouldn't actually fit in the rules of, it wouldn't be close enough. So if I put it in the right place, the slip joint is behind it. This piece is behind it. So that causes me problems. So I made a big long one, but this one's quite short. So I envisage if you got a piece of 50mm bar and you brought it out and down, put a half moon at the top and a half moon at the bottom, you're done.
So you only need one piece coming down.
Both sides, so one each side.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
one down the back, and it's going to pretty much be right on that fuel tank, very close to it, and then down the outside. Bracket at the front and bolt that bar in so you can take it out.
Oh, it's bolting.
Well, you can weld brackets on this crossbar. Oh, beg your pardon, sit down. Good girl. Do you think this drive shaft hoop is being done correctly? Basically, build a bracket onto that one that you can bolt your through bar through onto. Bolt one on that one. I think I actually had the last one dropping down a little bit. I brought it down like 100 mils because I did a measurement. We probably should do the shock.
I noticed that.
I did a measurement of how far up the diff is going to go. So I actually think I dropped it down about to here to bring it. However it does, yeah, I think I put it straight through because it could drop down just fine. And again, suitable crush tubes, you know the deal. Weld it onto each ends, put a bar that bolts on. And I actually welded, the last one I put the hoop on, so if you wanted to take it off, you had to drop the drive shaft off, and it worked just fine. It was still very serviceable because I could take that through bar completely off.